Hello everyone, just a quick word from your friendly editor/husband. For all of you who listen to So I'm Watching This Show and own an Android device, do me a favor. Go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android devices. I use the app and love it. I can search for the podcasts I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and have them all just a click away. Make sure you set So I'm Watching the Show as a favorite so you don't miss any new episodes. Again, the app is Podcast Republic, available on your Android device. Thanks!
Did you see about Cheesecake Factory?
What?
They're trending on Twitter right now. We are, as we've discussed, in the midst of a global pandemic. And they basically, every Cheesecake Factory has told their landlord that they will not be paying rent on April 1st.
I mean...
So everybody on Twitter is like, where were you when Cheesecake Factory started the revolution? It's hilarious.
Hello, everybody. I am Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching This Show. On today's episode, we have a special episode planned. We have a special guest, our friend Stefan.
Hello.
He is calling in for the first time on any podcast, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's exciting.
But we are going to do the first in what is most likely going to be a series of the Scream movies. It's something that it's been on our list literally since day one. And we just weren't ever sure when to tackle it. Because I think at the time I was like, well, let's do all four at once. And you were like, we could definitely do.
Yeah. Literally the whole time we've been planning it. But then you said that. And I was like, definitely we can't do them all four at once. That's too much to talk about. And you were like, I think we can do it. And I was like, we definitely can't. So now we are here. We are 2.5 years later doing the first one only.
Mm-hmm. Well, I asked Stefan if he wanted to be on the show, and I know how much he enjoys it. I was like, between the three of us, we definitely can do one.
Yeah.
But, and also, a little bit of confession time. It's been years since I've watched this one, the first one. It historically had never been my favorite, and we'll explain why. Or I'll explain my thinking behind it. But this was very interesting and very exciting for me going back to rewatch it. And I have things to say. So I was going to say, starting off, what is each of you guys' individual histories with the Scream franchise, and when did you come to it and this particular movie? Kristen?
Yeah, so I think I have talked previously on this podcast about how I was not allowed to watch scary movies by my parents when I was the age when this came out. So, but I had a friend named Christina, and her mom didn't care what we did. So every time I went to Christina's house, we would watch scary movies. And this was one of the first ones we ever watched. And I will admit that my parents were right, because this scared the ever-loving shit out of me when I was 13 or whatever. I couldn't handle it. I had nightmares for weeks, and it wasn't even necessarily specific nightmares. It was just that I couldn't, when I would wake up in the middle of the night, I had so much anxiety about what was in the shadows of my room that I couldn't fall back asleep. So they were right to make me not watch these, but I did it anyway.
This was a hair early for us. Yeah. Because what were we, 10, 11, 12?
What year? 96? 11. Yeah. So I saw it. We rented it at Blockbuster. So I saw it 1 or 2 years after.
Mm-hmm. So Stefan, how about you?
So I actually remember, I don't remember the date or anything, but I remember the, the first night that I saw it. I think, I want to say it was my dad and his girlfriend who lived with us at the time. They had rented it, and then we all had watched something, and then they just were like, well, we're going off the bed. If you want to watch this other movie, which was Scream at the time, they were just like, go for it. And so I did. And I remember watching it, and for some reason, I remember when I was a kid, I had a kind of a weird irrational fear of being murdered. And so I
don't think that's irrational.
Yeah,
I mean
now. of course. But I don't know, the whole home invasion thing really struck a chord with me. So the whole first scene with Drew Barrymore, being home alone and being terrorized and everything, really struck a chord. I remember it was it was like kind of fun because of like how he was toying with her and everything like that. But then once stuff like really starts happening, I remember like after like, you know, that whole scene ended, I was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like, maybe I should like figure out something else to do. But then obviously I stuck around through it, and like it made such a huge impact with me that like I'm still watching it at like 33 years old. So like it's really good. And I mean, but just like seeing it as a 11, I think I was probably 11, I think at that point. It was pretty jarring in that first bit.
I remember hearing about this movie because I was definitely too gentle of a soul when it came out for even the mere concept of it. And I remember a group of girlfriends, I think, had watched it at a sleepover, and just by knowing of its existence sent me into crisis. Like, it was something that I had just never even really comprehended beyond like, Are You Afraid of the Dark? I was just like, ugh.
Yeah, this is so many leagues beyond Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh my God, yeah.
I was so sensitive to scary things when I was young. And so it was probably 2000 or 2001 by the time I came to it. And funny story, actually, I saw 40 minutes of Scream 3 at a party before I even knew what I was watching. Like, I was just trying to be cool for the other kids. And so I have very vivid memories of Scream 3 before I even saw the first one.
Amazing.
But there was a point, and I think like my sophomore year in high school, I went through, it was that summer, I remember, because we watched Sleepy Hollow, and I was like, it wasn't that scary. I loved it. I was obsessed with it. And I was just suddenly ready to like tackle the scary movies. And so that summer we watched a bunch of them. And I just remember Scream was like the hallowed ground. It's like, well, you start with Scream.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it really is, it's a genre defining film, and it's a generation defining film, I think. Mm-hmm. I do know that when it was released, because they released it in like Christmas, which is kind of like bold.
Well, they did. It was on purpose.
It like flopped hard, like really hard. And a lot of like publications from the time just labeled it DOA. But the day, like during it was Christmas break or whatever. And so during the day, like teenagers kept going to see it, and the numbers just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it ended up being this like runaway hit. And it just sort of became this thing. And so I did mention earlier that the first one was never my favorite. And I think that's because at the time I was playing catch up. And so it was like we were just going to Blockbuster and renting movie after movie after movie.
Okay.
And I was in a race to get to the finish line, to get caught up and stuff. And the second and third one had elements that I connected more with, like the college theater. I thought the theater setting was very interesting. And then the third one, which again, it's been a long time since I've revisited almost all of them, but the third one for a long time was my favorite because I thought it was the funniest one, and I loved Parker Posey, and obviously movies. Hello, yeah. I was like all about the Hollywood stuff, and so I've seen those dozens of times in a way that I've probably only seen this one about 5 times, which I mean, over the course of 20 years is
not very many.
It's not a lot. Yeah. Not a lot. And then there's that thing where I get anxiety about it, where I revisit something from my past, and I'm like, is this still going to be good? Or is it going to be like, yikes, remember when I thought this was good?
Yeah.
And so I could tell almost immediately starting this last night where I was like, oh my God, it's still good.
Yeah, of course it's still good.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, it's actually just a good movie. Like once you take, like even taking the genre aspects out of it, it's a well-made movie. The writing is sharp, the storytelling, because like I forgot about how much the like story about her mom, like I forgot that that was a mystery through the movie.
Yeah.
Like you were trying to like put things together, and it is very hip, and it is a little dated.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's very 1996. Although, again, as we've mentioned, with a lot of the 90s stuff we've been visiting lately, a lot of the fashion just lifts right out and comes into today.
Oh, like, yeah. A lot of the jeans.
Wasn't that bad.
A lot of the jeans. I would also wear Tatum's party outfit. For sure.
That is very mid to late 90s. I was watching it last night. That was like one of the first things that I thought of. I actually, going back to the clothes and everything, I wrote down that the teens, a lot of them don't seem to dress like teens. Like there's a lot of guys walking around with like Oxford shirts like tucked into their pleated khakis, and I was like these are business casual teens.
Business casual teens. It's like chinos and like loafers.
Yeah. Randy's wearing loafers through like most of the movie.
Randy is a different animal in this movie. Randy's a whole thing.
I mean, they do it now, too, because people joke about Riverdale and stuff, but it's like, for some reason, like, in the 90s, especially, movies that were, like, about teens, it's like they attempted with the main cast, but it was, like, a free-for-all as far as the extras go. Like, there's a screenshot of Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, where there's a bald man in the high school.
At school, like in the cafeteria,
Yeah, it's like... But yeah, so I was really impressed, and I kind of had this big grin that crept across my face, because I was like, it does really hold up. And it's also, in a weird way, like I said, it's very dated for better and worse, because it's also a little bit of a love letter to a very specific time, because the world was changing so rapidly at this point. And there's just stuff like, let's talk about the opening scene. That scene is huge. It's incredible.
It's my favorite, probably one of my favorite scenes, like in a movie, like totally. So
it's such a good horror moment, and it's also, if you're thinking about it, especially in the time, Drew Barrymore was the most famous person in the cast, and so you're watching, and the whole time you're like,
it also was like her comeback.
Yeah, and the whole time you're like, she's gonna get away. It's fine. It's Drew Barrymore. Of course she's gonna get away. And you reach the point where you're like, oh, she was just stabbed in the lungs. She's not going to get away. And you're like, what the fuck? It's like Ned Stark before Ned Stark.
I mean, yeah, because they were courting her for the role of Sydney, and she very astutely was like, I want Casey, and they were kind of like, no, you can't. And she knew it would be a better thing, and it's iconic. I mean, it's film history. Like,
100%.
I mean, play her answering the phone at the Oscars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It just, I mean, I think you called this movie genre defining earlier, and I think it also is defying because it goes against so many things that we're taught. Even it goes against Randy's own rules in the movie. In so many ways. That's so interesting, and I think that's one of the things that was always so interesting about Wes Craven as a creator, because he was just like always willing to swing for the fences that way.
Well, and I was going to say that it was maybe ahead of its time, but I think in many ways it sort of ushered in a new era, because from here on, that sort of meta commentary, because the thing about it, the thing about the level of satire this movie is that it is satirical while also being incredibly severe. Like it is a serious movie in a way that I think we see a lot more of that in the 2000s. It like sort of that becomes a whole thing, the commenting on commenting and stuff. And because like I said, the opening scene, it's like a perfect short film too. We just sort of like,
it is. Yeah, I would honestly compare it to like the opening sequence of Up, in that it tells a complete story and it tells it perfectly. And at no point do I wish anything about it were different.
And because they take their time at first, and like, and we're being sustained by Drew's charm, because it's like an 11-minute scene. We're being sustained by her charm for at least 4 minutes, and it's also happening in real time. If you ever pay attention to like the popcorn,
the
movie does a lot of that, where it's like part of it is playing with your expectations, and like part of it is like stretching things out. It's really, really interesting, but I wish I could explain it better than that. I don't know how, but
no, yeah. I definitely understand what you mean, because especially if you think about the party scene, which takes up like 40 minutes of the runtime.
Yeah, it's like the whole third act, right?
Party at Stu's house. Yeah, it is like the whole third act.
And it's all happening in real time. Like, we're not jumping around.
Yeah, it's like immaculately paced. Especially once you, even more so once you get the like 30-second delay in Gale Weathers' camera truck. Like, even that, it's like another layer on top of that. I mean, that's the thing. It's just, this one has always been, in my opinion, the best Scream movie for horror. this is the scariest one.
Mhm.
So if you want to watch a Scream movie and you want to be scared, this is the one that you watch. And I think that all of that pacing and the way that they do stuff in real time, I think that's the stuff that makes it go down the scary road the most.
Mhm.
I think like going back to how you were just saying that it's the scariest one, specifically in that first scene when she hangs up on him and then tries to call 911 and then he calls her back immediately after, like how like when she screams like that and she gets like super frustrated and then he like rings the doorbell a lot. Like there is a lot of things in there that I don't know, like I find like super super scary because like at that point she's alone, she doesn't know where her boyfriend is. And this guy is just like, messing with her, like after he's already, or basically dropped that he's like watching her. So it kind of just like, it kind of keeps on building and building and building. And then like once like she actually sees him, murder her boyfriend and everything like that, she knows it's real. And then like once he actually gets into the house, it becomes like a whole other thing. So it's like, it stops being fun and starts getting like actually scary. And then like the murder itself in that scene to me is like the most brutal part, like murder in the movie.
Absolutely.
Like he straight up stabs her in the neck.
Yeah, for me, the worst part about Casey's murder is how close her parents are. Like she is so close to almost being safe to the point where she's about to call out to them and he covers her mouth and stabs her in the chest.
Yep.
And I'm just like, ugh. It's just it's brutal and it's like just so close to being okay, which makes it tragic. And it's amazing, but it's the most horrible thing I've ever seen.
Because I was going to say it's also weirdly beautiful. Like that house is very nice, even for its dated like 90s aesthetic, and the way that the TV in the background has that blue like AUX screen and you can see it in the background of so many shots as this like glare, this pop of color and stuff. And it's like there's so many little details because even, the time when her mom finally like opens the door and sees the body, it's like there's like heat coming off of the body.
Yeah.
So it's like it's cold outside and stuff. It's like there's a lot of really visceral stuff. And I wasn't able to watch. I have the big DVD set, but it's at my parents' house and I couldn't go home and get it. So I wasn't able to watch any of the special features again because the last time I saw them, I was 18.
Yeah.
But it had a lot of special features. And if you can believe it, the concept art for Casey's death was way worse.
So even more brutal.
Way worse. Yeah.
She is literally gutted. I mean, ugh.
Have you seen it, Stefan?
I've seen the prosthetics that they made for like the dummy that they hung up. And like that, like actually saw that just before we got on. And that itself is like super disturbing because like there's a couple different photos that they show of it. But like one of them is where she just doesn't have hair and she looks like a precog from that one Tom Cruise movie.
Minority Report?
Yeah, it looks super weird. And like that
I
in
don't
itself,
like that at all.
no, it's awful. Like, and just to know like all that is becoming what you're going to see in like the final product and everything. It kind of makes it like a little bit like scarier just because the baseline of it was so scary to begin with.
Yeah.
When you were talking about like the visceral reactions, I was kind of as I was watching it again last night, when she gets stabbed and the first thing she does is start crying, like for me, that's like one of the worst parts of it because it like makes it way worse and like it makes it real in a sense. And then it's like you know there's more coming and you just kind of have to sit through it and like deal with it. But yeah.
She's very sympathetic in a way that a lot of times it's easy for these movies to take the edge off by making the people like stupid or unlikable.
Yeah.
I was having a slight issue getting back into this where I was taking it all very, very seriously. And I was sort of like, how is this one person going through life with all of these people like just on the razor's edge of insanity? And she brings it out of them and stuff. And that's when I was like, you know what, with certain kinds of movies, it's kind of like a musical. I have to think about it in a slightly different, frame or context. But I was going to say, of all of them, I feel like this one is the more plausible because, okay, full disclosure, I've been watching a lot of true crime during this quarantine.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's the only thing I can focus on. I can't concentrate on narratives for some reason.
Well, if you stumble on any good ones, let me know.
I mean...
Tiger King just came out.
I started
I
it.
have seen some stuff about that. Yeah, I haven't got into it yet, but I've seen some. I am considered an essential employee in Orange County, so I'm unfortunately still going to work, so I can't just watch stuff. But eventually, I'll get around to it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think you would want to watch. I watched the Don't Fuck with Cats one, and
yeah.
That one was actually very, very therapeutic for a weird reason that, I mean, this is so completely off topic. I can explain it later, but basically I was aware of that when it happened. And that was in the back of my mind for the past 10 years. And so when I watched the documentary, it helped me contextualize it and it helped me sort of put it in parameters. And I it was like closure. So, but anyways, back to Scream. So having watched some of these things, I'm sort of like, this is within the realm of plausibility that two teenagers could snap and kill a couple of their classmates. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you also
have to imagine Casey was probably a bitch.
Well, I mean, yes, but I think the thing that's so interesting to me, and I would absolutely love to know if it was like on the page and if it was on purpose, but there also is a heavy subtext between Stu and Billy that I always assumed this was like Billy's gig and Stu just was like into Billy. And so he went with it. Because Billy was like, we'll get away with it. It'll be fine. And we'll knock off all these fucking people who we hate. And then you and me, it'll be fine. And Stu was like, yeah, you and me. And Stu was focusing on the wrong parts.
Yeah, that's been brought up before. I can't remember if they ever said it, but I've definitely heard some people mention that there is some subtext there. And also...
But it's only one way. Like, it only goes from Stu to Billy. Like, Billy, I think, obviously, as he does, would just leave Stu in the lurch, for sure.
Yeah. Billy is a very means to an end type of person.
Absolutely. 100%.
I was also getting vibes from Randy in a way that I never did before. And I was like, if they were doing this now, Randy would absolutely be gay.
For sure, because he makes a couple of really ham-fisted comments about how he wants to date Sydney in the movie, and I was like, no, Randy, that's not your place. Let's just stay in your lane, Randy.
When she thinks it's him, when she's at her house, and she's like, I like what you're doing with your voice, it's sexy. Like, I always like that was kind of weird, because it's like, I'd probably never tell my friends that I think they're sexy. Like, that just seems kind of odd, but okay. Like,
maybe she was trying to freak him out enough to, like, call off the prank.
Probably,
because she still thought it was a prank at that point, but, who knows?
Also, I don't remember her dad being so creepy. Was that
he's only in that one scene, and he is pretty creepy.
It's weird. It's like,
I don't love it. I definitely don't love it. I'll admit that.
And also, I like the scene where they're in the bedroom. The one where he looks so much like Cole Sprouse from Riverdale.
I will end your life if you keep bringing this up. You told me this last night, and I had to hang up on you because I was literally furious. And it's a day later, and my rage has not subsided. Because I will tell you, we've been watching Riverdale for 4 years now, and Cole Sprouse is the son of Skeet Ulrich on that show, and I have made mention only once because you scoffed so hard at me that I thought Cole Sprouse looked a lot like a young Skeet Ulrich, and you were like, are you high? You're ridiculous. Absolutely not. And then you told me that yesterday, and I almost came over to Andrew's and hit you in the face.
I came down really... I'm going to comb through the audio and see if I can find it. I came down really hard, and historically...
You really did.
Historically... Whenever I'm right, I'm kind of like, yeah, I think so, blah, blah, blah. If I ever come down with confidence, there's a 95% chance I am completely wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know
but I even showed you side-by-side pictures, and you were like, no.
I don't remember that part, but... I think because I didn't remember it that way. Because when I watched this the first time, they looked like adults to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, okay.
In a way that Skeet Ulrich looked like a sexy, scuzzy guy,
Yeah.
like man.
Not like a 17-year-old child.
Yeah, and when I see Cole Sprouse, I'm like, it thinks it's people. So it just kind of, when there was the first shot in the bedroom, it was uncanny how much he looked like, and specifically it was the episode of Riverdale where he was playing the young FP.
Sure, yes.
Oh my God, it was insane. But yeah. So
that actually, if you're combing through for the audio, I think that's the episode where I said it in.
I owe Kristen an apology with that one.
Thank you, because as previously stated, I was right.
I didn't even remember when you freaked out yesterday when I was on the phone. I was like, what? What? I thought you read like a headline or something.
No, I was mad at you.
So, yeah, I also have a couple notes for that scene where I said, do you remember when NC-17 actually meant something?
Yeah, the MPAA wanted to make this NC-17 until the decent Weinstein was like, went in there and was like, look at it like a comedy, and then they were like, oh, okay, no, you have your R rating.
I remember thinking it was like super violent, but like don't you have to have like nudity to get an NC-17?
No, it can be there for violence.
Okay.
But Wes Craven cut stuff they went back and back and back, and Wes Craven kept cutting stuff, and that's when Bob Weinstein was like, what the fuck, you guys? Just watch it like a comedy. And then the MPAA was like, oh, okay, fine.
The MPAA is stupid.
The MPAA is super stupid.
No, because I swear because I had this on VHS as like a teenager, and I remember when Steve gets murdered, like his intestines fall out, and then I watched it on my DVD last night, and they don't even show that part at all. Like you can, like I think you can hear it like hit the ground, but you don't see it. You just
but you don't see it happen.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, and because I could have sworn you see like the killer like in front of him doing it too. And like I think one or two more things I think are a little bit different, but yeah, like I mean I used to watch this on VHS all the time, so I do remember certain smaller things like that. But
there's an unrated cut because you're right. I don't remember if the killer was in front of him, but you're right. There is more in the unrated version because my DVD was that, and what I watched last night was the theatrical cut. So
interesting. Okay.
If we can also talk about Sydney's room real quick and how much it just resembles a like a little nice B&B bedroom and not that of like a 16-year-old girl. She's an Indigo Girls poster in her room.
I was gonna bring up the Indigo Girls poster because I was like, that's weird. I was like, I guess it's 1996, but that's still a little weird for like a high school aged girl who is presented as definitely straight. Like, I know the Indigo Girls just make good music, but they're like that's like a gay coded, like a lesbian coded thing to have on her wall.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, no disrespect to the Indigo Girls. I don't have any qualms with them. Isn't that like they're kind of like an older band, right? Like, they're kind of more like older women. So it just seems weird that it's just like, I'm a 16-year-old girl, and I also listen to the Indigo Girls, and I'm very cool. But because you go to Tatum's room later and it's just, it's stuff's everywhere. Like it's super messy. It's like every like girl's room that I've ever seen. It's just everything tossed everywhere. So like to me, that always made more sense. But yeah, just watching it last night, that made.
So I think Sydney is based on everything that we learn about her in the movie. She's like a quote unquote good girl. Mm-hmm. And so her room would be pristine in a way that like, the mother who she perceived to be angelic, who is now dead, taught her to make her bed every day. Mm-hmm. So she does that, like, in honor of her dead mom. And it's, like, all this, like, weirdo kind of virtue signaling within the world of this horror movie is, like, laid at Sydney's feet. She's even wearing, like, a Little House on the Prairie nightgown when Billy comes and breaks in. Yeah.
It's hideous. And luckily, the first thing he says is, like, what are you wearing? So that at least was acknowledged. But
like, the room itself is, like, one step away from having, like, a butter churner in, like, the in the corner. Like, and then even
you're not wrong.
And then even in her like when they show her house later on, there's one of those like old timey like 2-piece phones that you have to use, and like you guys, even for decoration, this is like a bit much to be going this far back, but sure.
It dawned on me watching the movie this time where I was like, there's no nudity in this movie, and I was like, I don't think there is any in the entire series.
I don't think so.
I couldn't bring anything to mind. And I was like, especially no female nudity. I was like, that feels intentional. Like, that feels like a statement. In a cool way. In a neat way.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Well, yeah, because there's, like, always boobs in something. I guess we do kind of get, no, I guess even the TV when they're watching Halloween, it doesn't actually show.
They cut to the party.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah. I mean, I would say maybe like it's sort of the same as the original set of Jurassic Parks where they wouldn't kill a woman on screen. So I guess I'm not opposed to it.
Because in that regard, it was certainly not ahead of its time, I guess, right with its time, with the feminism of it all, with all of the girls, but especially Sydney and stuff. And I do love the way it's thoughtful in a way. She obviously mocks the girls in scary movies beforehand, where she's like, they're always running up the stairs when they should be running out the front door. And then literally that happens to her. And it's because she can't get out the front door. It's like they make reasons where it's like, oh, in real life, it's not like the movies type of a thing.
Exactly.
That it happens again and again and again in a really interesting way.
I was thinking about that to your point about like the feminist aspect of it. As I was trying to think of like, you know, stuff to bring up in here, I kind of noticed that none of the like the male victims, they all like just straight up get killed. Like they don't actually even really fight back. It's all the women who are able to like get a couple hits in. I mean, obviously some of them die, but I mean, like Tatum throws like the beer bottle at him. Casey, I think, like knees him the balls. Gail, like, you know, she pulls the gun on him first. She gets knocked out, but she's like ultimately the one who saves Sydney from Billy. And then, you know, obviously Sydney, you know, she's, you know, kicking ass the whole time too. But that was kind of one of the things that took me a little bit longer to kind of realize, like, they're like all the dudes in there just get, you know, basically they're kind of pretty much all useless. Like, no, I think or no,
you don't say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. It's more, I guess, pronounced and obvious than I think it typically would have been in like any other horror movie like that has like a final girl or whatever like that. So
yeah, the other thing I like that lends itself to that discussion as well is that Sydney does have sex with Billy in this movie, and she still is the final girl. Like she manages to make it out, and I think that was, especially given the rules that Randy lays down within the movie, I think that's a really smart way to go, because that's such a dumb rule. So I like that it went against that as well. Like, she has sex with Billy, but it also appears that it was like just okay for her. Like he was like, is it good, or how are you? And she's just like, I'm fine. But her voice goes like up an octave, like, you know, she's lying. That part was very funny to me now as like a full adult.
So yeah, I had mentioned earlier when I was talking about everything about the movie being so good, and I don't know that I'll go as far as to say that the acting is excellent, but it's not bad. And there are a handful of performances in this movie, particularly Matthew Lillard.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I've been waiting to talk about him because he's my favorite part.
Yeah, 100%.
Stu.
How he wasn't nominated for Best Supporting Actor, I'll never know. Like, the number of choices and the caliber of decisions he was making in this is insane. Like, that scene with him and Randy at the video store.
Yes.
When I was
reading
amazing.
The trivia, it says he was cast as Stu by chance after accompanying his then girlfriend to an unrelated audition taking place elsewhere in the same building. The casting director, her name's Lisa Beach, saw Lillard in the hallway and asked him to audition for the part, and he got into the role with, and this is in quotations, incredible ferocity. Which I love the notion that he just was like so like balls deep committed to this audition that he didn't even plan for, and then he got the role. That's insane.
And knocked it out of the park. Like, he's so funny in there,
totally, 100%.
It's in a way that comes from nowhere. Like, it's not even like you're like, oh, this was typical peak mid-90s humor. Like, it's just so weird and funny. And even just the scene with all of them together at the fountain, going back to actually how weirdly aesthetic, like pretty the movie is. It like their dynamic between each other. And because I messaged you, Kristen, but I was like, I never realized what a formative effect so many of these movies and scenes had on me as like a youth, where it's like growing older, I'm like, man, this scene is like in there for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is, again, to your point, to your point earlier where you were like, the scene with Casey and the telephone is they like play that at the Oscars. I mean, they get that fountain shot in movie montages all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Particularly for me, the lights in the pool at Casey's house, like when she's looking out and like the first time when she turns like all the lights on and everything like that, for some reason that always kind of like resonates with me. It may just be because like, I don't know, lights in pools at night are always like really cool for me, but especially
hey, you and Will should be friends because he really likes that too.
Oh really? Absolutely.
I use my parents' pool lights as a nightlight.
Oh really?
I like turn it off when I go to bed, but
it's just such a cool aesthetic, and I mean, especially for, you know, as brutal as, you know, the next scene's about to be, like it's just something really, really cool to check out. And I know like they kind of in Scream 2 they kind of embellish it a little bit, because I remember when they're watching you know, that first scene in the Stab movie, like I think they show it again and it's like it's not exactly the same, and it's maybe even a little bit nicer than the actual house or than the house from the first one, which is saying a lot because they're literal like wine country.
Yeah,
it's
right.
It's also Heather Graham.
Yeah.
Because there's actually a really great photo shoot, and I don't know why it exists, but it's Neve Campbell, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Heather Graham, and Tori Spelling. And I was like,
awesome.
None of them were even on set at the same time, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there's more casting and more performances to get to. For starters, Henry Winkler was so weird in this movie.
I had forgotten it was him. And when he popped up, I was like, Henry Winkler, what the fuck are you doing here?
And he's so mad. Like, he gets so pissed. Like, for good reason. Like, those kids are shitty, but...
Well, because that scene with the scissors, you're like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
You can't trust anybody. You know what I mean? Like... Because there's a reality where I would completely buy it's the principal. Like, these kids are coming.
Sure. Like, Henry Winkler just snapped one day.
The first time I saw this, I had no clue who the killers were, like, up until basically right when it happened.
Oh yeah, me neither.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess there's not a whole lot of slasher movies that are, you know, kind of doing that or stuff like that now. I know in, you know, back in this heyday where it was like this, Urban Legend, I know what she did last summer. I think Valentine came out a couple years later, but you don't see like a whole lot of like the whodunit slasher movies anymore, and I kind of wish they would do that a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I could watch Valentine again. It's so bad.
It is not good at all.
No, it's like David Boreanaz is like the killer, I think. Spoiler alert, I guess. It's such a bad movie.
I just remember Denise Richards in a hot tub, and I think Marley Shelton was also there.
It is Denise Richards. There's like everybody. I feel like Kate Hudson's in it.
I don't know. I have only seen it one time.
Katherine Heigl is.
That might be.
The robotic like senator or whatever from Parks and Rec. I don't remember his name. He's, I think, the actual killer.
Oh, I thought then I don't remember because I definitely thought that it was.
Well,
David
I know what you're thinking. Well, that's a different episode.
Yeah, no, we don't have to get into that.
Okay.
So, I also have a note in the middle. I just started kind of writing down notes, but I just wrote, "Who is this blonde cheerleader?"
What blonde cheerleader?
The one in the bathroom that was just like railing Sydney.
I have in my notes, everyone's so mean to Sydney, and I underlined it twice because they're just so shitty.
They're so mean to her, and it's like I don't know why. I think that was more of a 90s thing. I mean, granted, kids are always mean,
but that was really she was saying so many. She was like, no wonder her mom is dead with a slut like that for a daughter. And I was like, her mom was murdered. She didn't kill herself because Sydney's a slut, and also Sydney's not a slut. The whole thing. Well, because it was like
Billy refers to her as sexually anorexic, and I just wrote yikes. Like,
well, that is a legitimate psychological term, but
is it?
She's also it definitely is.
Oh, okay.
When you like purposefully put yourself through like a sexual drought, whether consciously or subconsciously, you're considered sexually anorexic, and usually there's like an underlying cause for it. But Sydney is 16. She's not sexually anorexic. Yeah. She's just still a virgin. Like, that's a whole different thing.
There's a handful of times when you're watching a movie that, like, well, like the 90s, where part of it doesn't feel that old, but then they'll say something just really out of pocket. And you're like, man, we used to get away with shit back in the day.
So much stuff. I almost started counting it because they said the word slut so many times.
Mhm.
And I was like, what do you think that word means? Because I don't think it means what you think it means. Because I calling Sydney's mom a slut is one thing, but also she was only having like an affair. It's not like she was the town bicycle. And even if she was,
Well, that was the implication.
who are you to judge?
Well, because Tatum said that there's like that there were rumors of like other men, but like also and I don't want to step on your point
but, like,
here.
that's not, mind your business.
Yeah, exactly. So Tatum's a shitty friend. Like,
no, Tatum's not the best friend.
No, not at all. Like as she's telling Sydney about Casey and Steve from the night before, she just goes like, it hasn't been, they say it's like the first, or it's like as bad as, oh, well, it's bad. And then just walks in and like makes a face and it's like, hey, that's your best friend, dude. Like her mom died less than a year ago, and like maybe have a little bit more like better way of saying it. And then like as they're sitting on the porch or whatever, she's having that same like, or that same conversation that you're just talking about. And then she just goes, whoa, like you can only hear that Richard Gere story so many times. It's like, damn, dude, like, do you just not get it? Or
like to quote Billy, it's called tact, fuck rag. Come on, like use your brain a little.
I also remember, because when I was like 17 watching this movie, 16 watching this movie, I remember thinking her mother's death was like ancient. Like it happened like a long time ago. And then when I was watching it this time, I was like, oh, that was like a year ago. I was like, not even.
Not enough time.
And then also Cotton has a full trial and sentencing within that first year.
Yeah.
Unrealistic.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that in here, but like, I don't know. I mean, even that is like a little bit like, maybe it's just because I also have been watching several true crime documentaries lately, and it never seems to be that quick, but
no, never.
Well, do we want to talk about the single most unrealistic thing in this movie? And it's that they shut down the town because 2 people died.
Okay, here's the thing too, because I loved.
That's a joke.
I loved your tweet yesterday, specifically because not only did 2 people die, but it also is by the point that they institute this curfew and school is canceled and everything, it is so clear that Sydney is being the one that is targeted. Like they're not killing random people. And I think Casey even got killed for a reason.
It's explained later, but yeah. Yeah,
okay. So they're not killing random people. And so it's like, why don't you just put Sydney somewhere safe? Like, why are you closing down the whole town? And also, but on the other hand, what a good reaction to a town-wide tragedy and thing that you can control. So on the one hand, I'm like, this is a dumb overreaction. On the other hand, I'm like, well, I wish we could get a little bit of a dumb overreaction in the real world right now.
It was the specific 1 to 2% number that just felt really familiar. I was like,
really familiar.
I mean, they did cancel school for my kids for the rest of the year, so like we're already halfway there.
We're halfway there. We just need to close down everything else.
Well, our governor's he kisses Trump's ring, so he's trying to reopen everything, but
no. For Easter, so the churches will be full.
That's a third different podcast.
Yeah, that's a
I just can't.
Going back to the whole like just unrealistic stuff in here, I guess for lack of a better word, like geography of everything never really made a whole lot of sense to me. Like
where people's houses are.
That and just like one of them hides in the women's bathroom and then attacks her, which like granted, like that's the only way in, but then she runs out. And so like basically they're kind of like they're either really ballsy or there was like some other way for them to get out, because like there's another lady that's like walking down the hall. Like I can see it in my head. And then he would still have to get out to avoid detection. Like, so there's so much like, I guess, theatricality in here.
Yeah. And I mean, at first I think that's to make it feel like the killer is omnipresent, which I appreciate. And it's not till later that you find out there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
So it's like, Billy could have, or whichever one's in the bathroom could have gone out the window while Stu is going around to kill Henry Winkler. You know what I mean?
And I think they did probably do that, like, because I was thinking about it as I watched it last night, probably like kind of specifically with when they killed like Tatum, and then I guess, I mean, literally moved like a bigger, the cameraman who's a bigger guy up onto the top of the actual what's it called, news van, which like is a cool effect, but also does not make any sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that in so many horror movies where it's like, how did you get that? I know you're Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich, you're nothing to sneeze at, but like, how did you get that overweight adult cameraman on top of the van with enough time to go back and keep terrorizing other people?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That stuff never really bothered me, and especially there's like 2 explicit scenes where we see Ghostface out and about during the day, and I can't say that this is intended, but the way that my brain always sort of saw that was more like it was, I can't think of the word I want to use, but like in her mind or something. Like it was just sort of
okay. Well, because there are similar shots in Halloween where Michael Myers is just out in the day. And so, but it also, again, you're right, because it's at a certain point, Laurie is the only one who's seeing him. And so you're like, well, is she really seeing him or is he not real? So I think that was probably a callback on purpose.
Because I did start to say it's not metaphoric, but yeah, it's like he could be anywhere or sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm 100% willing to just overlook all that. It's totally fine. I like this movie a lot. So, like, I'm. That's not a dig at all. I just think it's really weird.
No, I agree with you. It's fun stuff to think about when you're just sitting there, and it's like, I mean, I have to have seen this movie over a dozen times.
Same.
And I every time I can't be watching it with the same, like intense, all-consuming focus that I did the first time I watched it when it was brand new. So there are things like that stick out on further viewings where like the Indigo Girls poster and like how did they get Kenny on the roof of the van? Like that stuff it's funny to think about because it's funny to imagine the logistics. Like it's funny to imagine Billy and Stu out there in the Ghostface things, like having to take the hood off because it's so hot trying to get Kenny on top of the van. Like that's hilarious.
And Stu's not wearing pants, so. Yeah, I watched a video where they break down, like, specifically who's doing what. And in that regard, it holds up. Like who's doing what killing. And it holds up. So I definitely forgive the, like... I mean, for all we know, the camera guy climbed up there to like.
Sure. There's also, I mean, there's definitely a couple where which is which because like Billy kills Tatum, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because he shows up there before she does, or before like, or what's it called? Stu is still in the house, basically, being like a host and everything like that, and then he pops up at the end, and then I always kind of figured they were both there at what's her face's house, Sid's house. Because
at the beginning,
no, just when she gets attacked the first time.
Yeah. Because Billy comes in right after. I just imagine Stu was wearing the mask and then Billy was outside.
Yeah,
and you also know Billy killed Casey because it was too methodical. It wasn't. For sure. It wasn't frantic enough.
Yeah,
he was playing cat and mouse with her in a way that Stu would have just done it.
And because and I mean Tatum says that Stu was with her that night, but yeah, I mean, I always used to do to think about that, like who did what and how everything was like broken down or whatever. Because I think at the end of the day, like more like Billy kind of technically does more, right?
I think yes.
Yeah, I mean, well,
it's Billy's thing.
Yeah,
is the deal. Like Billy is the one who's like, let's do this, and Stu is just like, okay.
Well, so because I always wonder this. So when he's telling Sid, like in the kitchen, like why he did it, Stu has like a weird look on his face, like maybe he didn't let him in on that on that part of the plan. So I always wonder like how he would have been able to like essentially convince Stu, hey, let's be mass murderers for like a month or so, or I guess in this case like 3 days. But like,
yeah, I mean, I think that Stu was just sort of like down to clown with whatever Billy.
That goes back to the Stu kind of being in love with him thing, though.
Yeah, I think Stu would have done anything that Billy would have suggested.
That part it makes total sense in the true crime sort of way, but at least to me. But we also have not addressed Courtney Cox or David Arquette.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to talk about Gale Weathers.
They met on this one, right? This is like where they met.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're such interesting characters, and we say stuff like this a lot, but it's like I kind of want to know like what the writers were thinking. Like when we went into this, did they have 2 and 3? Did they know what they were dealing with these characters, that they were going to be this weird trio at the center of this franchise? Like, that's so strange to me, that the 3 of them, I mean, Sydney obviously makes sense, but it's like the bitch reporter and the worthless cop. Like,
I definitely, I doubt that they had them all 3, but when I was reading the trivia earlier, what I found interesting was that Dewey was initially written as like a hunky cop.
Yeah.
And then David Arquette went in for Billy, and then he was like, actually, I'd like to be Dewey, but could you make him Doofy? And they were like, yeah, sure. And so they like rewrote Dewey for David Arquette. And it again is such a weirdly iconic role.
Mm-hmm.
Every role in this movie specifically is so iconic in a way that like, I don't know that they could have fully predicted that. And to even think that, because that's now like the 3rd different story where we've talked about the actors knowing more about the characters than the writers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I super wonder how much was actually on the page and how much of this we can, leave down to thanking all of these Nev Campbell and, David Arquette. It's so wild to think about stuff like that. These actors don't get their due, in my opinion, for the most part. And they're capable of things like this, and it's kind of insane to me.
Well, I was literally about to say about Courtney Cox, and this is not Jennifer Aniston shade. I don't mean this negatively about Jennifer Aniston, but Courtney Cox was always my favorite. I never thought she got enough credit for all of her contributions, but in particular her comedy. She has very great comedic timing. And Gail's kind of an interesting character because she's not likable. I mean, she's a bitch through the whole movie. And as Stefan already mentioned, she kind of has she shoots him the first time. That's what you said? That's what it is?
No, she pulls the gun on him the first time, but then the safety's on.
Right.
Yeah. But she tries.
Yeah.
But so who shoots him finally? It's her.
Dewey, I think.
Yeah, sorry.
Her?
I thought, sorry. She does shoot him finally because he's about to stab Sid.
And she was like, that time I remembered the safety or something. Yeah. And so it's like, it's interesting to give that character that moment in this, slasher film about teens. And then her growth continues throughout the coming movies. And back to the whole, how they do make sure to make everybody a suspect. It's like even Dewey, the scene where Sydney gets the call when she's at Tatum's house. And he's like gone, and he comes out at the right moment waving his stupid little gun.
Yeah.
That's another thing for me. I meant to mention it at the top, but this was never scary to me, really, because I saw Scary Movie first.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And several times. And so, like, all the piss had been taken out of it. I was just kind of like, oh, this is where that came from. And it's like, I had seen so many parodies of it by that point that for me, it was just sort of interesting watching it. I was kind of like, oh, I didn't know that's what that meant. Like,
wow. No, because it's still, I couldn't look directly at the opening scene.
Now?
It's so scary.
Oh, I was fine.
There are
it's
parts
so scary.
I mean, the fact that her parents find her, like, cut up, like, hanging from a tree is just, like...
It's awful.
Yeah, thinking about that, like...
Hearing her on the phone is worse.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Way worse, way worse, yeah. That's, like, on, like, sadness-wise, that's, like, on par when Cedric's dad finds out he's dead in the 4th Harry Potter. It's just the worst.
I did not know where you were going with that. I could not have predicted that's the end we were coming to. But
sorry.
We addressed Tatum's death. I like how the movie telegraphs that first with the cat going out the doggy door. That always bothered me because I've always felt like she just gives up, which, I mean, at a certain point, I could imagine you would just resign yourself to what's happening. But there was a part of me where I'm like, she just stopped trying halfway through. And I always thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Did
she could have just
guys
tried to
ever
back out.
Yeah, I was just sort of like, sweetheart, okay.
Well, her boobs are too big, Stefan.
Oh, that's true.
She can't get back out.
They're not made of concrete. I don't know, maybe they were. That shot of her opening the door. And I know it's on purpose, but it's like, it's so funny with the tits and the nipples and stuff. Rose McGowan. There's a lot that could be said.
Yeah. We don't have time for that either.
No. While I think her death is kind of stupid, I do sort of like the message of it. It's very 1,000 Ways to Die. How, like, mundane, everyday things can turn wrong or turn deadly so quickly. That part's freaky, but in a very Final Destination kind of way. We should do that next.
Oh,
I've never seen that either.
Oh, man, you've never seen Final Destination?
No, as I mentioned, I was not allowed to watch scary movies, and I only managed to get through so many with my friend Christina.
Mm-hmm. Just in the way that I guess this, and then I Know What You Did Last Summer, and like Urban Legend and everything, like they always kind of represent like that mid to late 90s time frame. I want to say Final Destination came out in like 2000, so like
2000.
That whole that whole series always kind of, that's like a good chunk of time for that I look back on it, because I don't know, for whatever reason, looking like I kind of think of movies a lot when I think back on like, time frames. For whatever reason, Final Destination is like the beginning of the 2000s for me, because I remember I think it was like whatever the one with where the kid dies, or you think he's going to die in the dentist office. I remember seeing that at someone's house in 2003, and so like I'm almost able to like track it through. So like that's for whatever reason, that's always been like my like horror movies for like the 2000s or the early 2000s era. So you guys should definitely check them out.
Yeah.
No, I know. I've seen this because the kid in the dentist office, that's the 2000 or the second one, which was 2003. Final Destination is no Dracula 3 or 2000, but
I liked that.
I did too.
No, we like it. We like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so kind of dumb and like fun that I'm just like, all right, fine, I'll let it go. Like
but it's another one that's kind of like, if you watch it as a scary movie, it's terrible. But if you watch it as like a weird fantasy film, it's like kind of rad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, in a real way, we have discussed doing it for Easter.
We have.
Just so you know where our head is at regarding that movie.
Do it.
But yeah. I feel like the soundtrack for this movie was a little bit lacking. Did you guys think that?
It's not great like so many, like honestly, I know you didn't 100% love it, but the soundtrack for like Cruel Intentions slaps. And that was only like 2 years after this, and this one is, or 3 maybe, but yeah, I don't know, I agree with you. They have a couple nods, like they play Don't Fear the Reaper, which is in Halloween as well.
I love the version that they play too.
I mean, it's very good. And they do Red Right Hand, which is also very good. But there just was like, there's not enough popular music in it.
I have an issue with the songs that they choose for the closing credits from movies in this time, because I was like watching those end credits and I was like, what is this song?
What was it?
It was something about like, we are the youth, we are the people. And I was like, what? Like, it was very...
What a weird credits message after this movie.
It was very the end of season 3 of Teen Wolf, where I was kind of like, I don't know, that it had kind of an uplifting vibe, but it was strange. And they do the fun credits. I'm always here for like fun credits, but
there's like maybe 3 songs on here, like other than the score, that like I really get into, but I don't know, like maybe just because I've seen it so many times. But like Red Right Hand always does it for me. Like every time, like always in like, leading up to Halloween and everything, I find it kind of like on my playlist a lot. And then that Youth of America song that they played like right before they go into the party for some reason is a big one. And that like I don't think I've ever heard another song by that band, but that song like specifically like is ingrained in my memory. And like anytime I hear it, I always just think of like that whole part where like Dewey's driving Tatum and Sydney up to the party, and then Gail and her cameraman stop, and then he just tosses out his chip bag. So like, I don't know, like it's not. I mean, other than that, and the Don't Fear the Reaper.
What scene is the Red Right Hand one in?
I don't remember.
It's right by it's on like two of the curfew scenes, I think. Or no, sorry, the first one is like when I think everyone just got out of school, and then the other one.
Well, they play Schools Out by Alice Cooper when they're leaving school, but you're right. It's during the when everybody's locking up their doors for the curfew. That's when they're playing Red Right Hand.
No, they play it twice in there, I think.
Yeah.
Do they play it twice?
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably right. Yeah. But I just like, that's an excellent song, but it also it was like a deep cut in 1996.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at, where it's like, for a movie that was so genre defining, it really has very little genre defining music. And
There's no Lady Marmalade in this one.
Well, sure. And to which I would say, I'm not suggesting that they put like teeny bopper pop in this movie, but there had to have been some like alt rock stuff that could have gone in. And there's really, even still, I'm looking at this soundtrack list right now and it's short. It's like there's not a lot of songs in general, which is strange to me.
Well, 96 is still a little bit like the older, like it was very much in a transitional phase.
Yeah.
Like, I bet you by Scream 3, it will be a very flashy soundtrack.
So it was, because I remember Scream 3 had Wait and Bleed by Slipknot, because that was the first Slipknot song that I had heard. And then they had a Creed song on there. And I remember that music video because Creed is in there, like they're all like hanging out on a back lot, and for whatever reason there's a guy, someone in a ghost face mask, and it turns out that it was like, by the end of it just turns out that it was all different members of the band, but then like there's another ghost face at the end and like he gets them and then it ends. But so they did try and do that, because I don't even think in Scream 2 they really tried going for that as much either.
Scream 2 is stuntier with the casting than it is.
Yeah.
It's definitely stuntier with the casting, yeah.
But I wonder if maybe that had something, if that carried over with like how, you know, like I said before, like business casually, like the teens were dressing. Like they're like,
Maybe.
oh, well, they like this song about like, you know, being the youth and, you know, Moby and stuff like that. So
and they definitely love Blue Oyster Cult.
Yep, they do.
So
and like they live in like you know B&B decorated rooms, even though they're like 16-year-old girls. But yeah,
my last note on the B&B note just says, God, Stu's house is hideous.
It's not great. It's
so
definitely
ugly.
not great. Like, honestly, Casey's house is the nicest.
Oh yeah, like by leaps and bounds,
by a wide margin.
Stefan, did you ever watch the TV series on MTV?
No, I remember talking about it with you for a little bit, and you had always told me to go check it out. Are they actually murdering people in that show? Because it seems weird.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't in good conscience say that it's good, but it was very watchable.
Okay.
We enjoyed...
It's also... parts of it are, like, so insanely funny.
Mm-hmm. There was
it's
some
hard
good
to
material.
explain.
The characters were interesting, and there were 2 seasons, and it ends on a weird cliffhanger, and then they retooled the show completely and brought it back for a 3rd season that they just unceremoniously dumped like 2 years after filming.
It's like on VH1, right?
Yeah, it was. MTV changed CEOs or whatever, and he basically came in, and it was like a Lion King, and he just like killed all the cubs from the previous regime. And
he was like, "We're not doing scripted TV anymore."
Yeah,
and Will and I were like, "But you've been doing so good at it."
Yeah,
because there was a handful of shows that even some of the bad, like Finding Carter, wasn't very good, but it was interesting. Like,
yeah.
Mm. And I mean, I thought that Scream, in a weird way, I was like, that's something that hasn't really been explored in long form storytelling, and then there were none, like ticking off characters one by one.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I don't know that I would. Well, you have a pretty high tolerance, so I feel confident saying that it's good to you. But, yeah, and they changed the mask. They like updated the mask, and I really liked the update. And they
I liked that.
Went back to the original one for the 3rd season, but yeah, I think it's somewhere. I think it might be on Hulu or something.
It's got to be streaming somewhere.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, it's probably on Amazon, to be honest. But I don't have any way of knowing that.
Yeah, no, because I think I can't remember if I saw it on Netflix. I know it was on there at one point, but I can't remember because I went to go see if like the first one was on Netflix a couple nights ago, and then I think I might have seen it. I know like 2 and 3 are, But yeah, I might give it a chance now. Like now that we've been talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
If this entices you anymore, Bella Thorne is the Drew Barrymore character.
Oh, wait. So is it all the same characters?
No,
it's like, but
she's like the first.
There basically just is like there's the Casey scene at the beginning of episode 1, and it's.
I mean, it's a similar format in the sense that the lead girl has like family troubles and.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's similar in vibe, and it's the most similar to Scream 1.
Okay.
But it is definitely more modern. There's like an LGBT character, and they do break some of the, like, because the bitchy girl ends up having a really great redemption arc and stuff. And
yeah.
Okay.
Like Kristen said, it's very funny, and a lot of the performances are actually very good.
I wouldn't mind checking it out. I just
I kind of would rewatch it myself. I'm kind of like, I don't know, do I want to watch Scream again?
Yeah.
And it's a fairly decent ending, I think.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, I remember, because that was right around the time when like Teen Wolf had started, right?
A little after, but
a couple
they
years
overlapped.
after, yeah.
Okay. Because I remember like seeing you like speak so highly of Teen Wolf for a while, so I was like, and then I remember you talking about Scream, so I was like, all right, maybe I'll give it a chance, and then it just never got around to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, Teen Wolf was 2011, and Scream was 2015.
Okay.
Yeah. So they did overlap for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The first 3 seasons of Teen Wolf are excellent.
Very excellent, yeah.
And then the rest
because that had what's his face in it? Dylan something?
Sprayberry. Sprayberry. O'Brien. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, that's Maze Runner dude, right?
Sprayberry is in it, and he has been on your mind lately, but
O'Brien's one you're thinking of, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should watch Teen Wolf.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe I'm gonna check out Teen Wolf too. I don't know.
You would probably like, especially season 1. You would really like season 1 of Teen Wolf.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, with all this whole quarantine thing going on, I'm like, well, maybe I'll just catch up on all the stuff I haven't listened to or like watched in like forever. I think I have like 5 episodes from you guys that I just hadn't gotten to yet. So I'm going to make my way through those too. So
do you listen to all of them or just the ones that you know?
Just the ones that I know, okay. Or things that I've seen. But like we just saw The Invisible Man a couple weeks ago or no, a couple days ago. I talked to Kristen a little bit about it on Twitter, but I guess you guys did like a Kingsman episode a while ago that I think I fell past the radar because I didn't see 2 right away.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say only the second one. We only talked about, and that was early. That was like one of our first 10 episodes.
Okay,
I think we must have mentioned the first one in it.
Okay, I'm sure we did, but we were primarily focused on because it was
the second one. Yeah,
we did like it was an episode we did of sequels, so we did Pitch Perfect 3 and Pirates of the Caribbean 4 and Kingsman 2.
Oh, okay, maybe yeah. I'll have to go back and check that one out. But yeah, no, there's like, I mean, pretty much like any time that I see stuff, like I still haven't seen Onward, but like anytime something comes out, like and you guys put an episode out, like I'll typically like cue that up next.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
We are not paying Stefan to say this.
No. This is all 100% correct, or we're 100% true too. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, that was our Teen Wolf episode. No.
Yeah. Mini Teen Wolf episode. I've never even seen it. No, I had a couple of notes on here that basically talking with your friends during movies was the original podcast. Because I feel, because like the little tangent that they go on where they just, pause everything and then start going through the rules. It's like, yeah, this kind of seems like, what podcasting has turned into, where it's like, people sitting around like talking about stuff and like, kind of working things out like they did. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool too.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I know, Will, you said that like a lot of it is kind of dated, but like, I don't know, to me, like I always feel like it's a pretty good like snapshot of like that mid to late 90s time frame. Like the reporter like in front of the school talking about how like, there were rumors of the occult or whatever. Like there was like that big like satanic scare.
Suit.
Yeah. There was like that big satanic scare like in like the mid 90s or so. That like they thought kids were just worshiping Satan and making like human sacrifices all over. And that and like the whole like distrust of cell phones and everything, like I always thought was kind of really like it, I don't know, just painted a perfect picture of like that point in time.
Yeah, I agree with that, all that, especially the chartreuse skirt suit and Gale Weathers' lime green one.
I love that Gale finds a way to have her hair terrible in a different way in all
every
three movies.
single movie. Oh my
the fourth
god!
one's the only one it's okay. But
It's not the worst in the fourth one, but yeah.
What's the one where she has the really short bangs? Is that 2 or 3?
3.
Yeah, that's bad.
2, it's like the short bob with like chunky red highlights.
Okay.
Chunky
or
highlights
or whatever. Yeah. Actually, we barely talked about Cotton Weary, but he's also barely in this movie. I didn't realize. I don't remember that.
Yeah, no, there's only like news footage of Liev Schreiber. He's more in this. Yeah, Cotton Weary. He's more in the second and third ones, I think.
Well,
And then the third one, he's only in there real quick, like
the opening. Yeah,
he dies in the beginning, but
that's right. Oh, I forgot. Oh, that makes me sad.
Stefan, you ruined the third one for Christmas.
That makes me sad in the third one. No, I mean, I love the third one. I think it's the funniest one.
The third one's wild because like they up it so much. Like they have, just like the whole set pieces of like the house and everything, but they also have all like that multi-voice changer, so he can just be whoever, which seems weird to me because it's like, one, how would you do that? But then 2, it's just, I don't know, like, seems kind of unnecessary, but, I'll let it slide.
You're reminding me of all of the things I love most about it.
Oh, no, it's great. Again, I don't have anything bad to say about these movies.
You just say Parker Posey 3 times in a row now?
Parker Posey rules in Scream 3 when she's yelling at,
funny.
She's like so unhinged, but like when she's yelling at, the guy from Millennium, whose name Lance Henriksen, I think. Yeah. When she's just like screaming at him in his office, and then like I think it's Sydney has to pull her off and just basically be like, "All right, calm down." Like she's so funny in that though.
It's so good. It's so good.
So okay, well I'm gonna cut us off there, but
all right.
Thank you, Stefan, for joining us.
Yes,
thank you so much for having me. Love the show, so I'm really glad that I could talk about this one too, or about this movie. So,
do you want people to find you on social media?
No, you have it.
No,
you have it pretty.
You don't have to. You don't have to. We just let people plug themselves if they want.
No, I'm good.
Okay,
I'll just plug washing your hands.
Stefan on social media.
Yeah, don't find me. Just wash your hands right now.
Yeah, just please wash your hands for the love of God. But you can find us on social media. We are on Twitter @SoI'mWatching, Instagram @SoI'mWatchingThisShow. You can also follow along on our website, soimwatching.com, which links out to everything, including our Patreon, if you would like to support us and get episodes of TV shows that we talk about. You can do that there for $3 a month. And we're also on YouTube, though currently it's only audio. And on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I almost said Central, and I don't know why. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we are on the app TV Co. doing live watch parties for the season of Katie Keene on the CW that's on right now. And other than that, you can just go to anywhere you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe. And that's it for us. Bye.
Bye.
Take a little walk to the edge of town and go across the track, where the viaduct looms like a bird of doom as it shifts and cracks, where secrets lie in the border fires and the humming wires. Yeah, man, you know you're never coming back. Past the square, past the bridge, past the mills, past the stacks. On a gathering storm comes a tall, handsome man in a dusty black coat with a red right hand.